All right. I don't know who's going to be tuning in this early to this, but as you guys know, this will be up on the Facebook and YouTube after the fact. But finally, I've got, as I speak, Zach Cunningham finally on here. Was supposed to be on here weeks ago, had something come up. Uh, no grudges held there, as he knows. But I am really excited to finally get you on here and talk with you, man. I was really excited when you reached out after your talk with JT, and excited to get my chance to pick your brain as well and just kind of help further spread your name around there and all your music.
Yeah, man.
How are you doing this morning?
Not bad. I've been
Not
up. I
bad.
actually woke up.
Still a
I
little
actually woke.
tired.
I woke up early this morning myself. It was just I ended up getting cold, and I just woke up like, gosh, I think I've been up since 6 a.m. To be honest with you.
6 a.m. Yeah,
Yeah. So I
that's better than 4.
true, but I think I went to bed at like like 1:30. So I haven't got a lot of sleep.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
I haven't stayed up that late since before I had a kid, and I still did late night gaming sessions.
Yeah, I need to get back to working out. Like I said, we were talking, before we went live, and when I was working out, I had like a really good circadian rhythm, and I need to get
Yeah,
back to it.
yeah. I got to start working out myself. I'm not the healthiest as far as food habits and just exercise goes, besides my job. So I get it.
Oh, dude, we're Americans.
Yeah,
We're Americans. We like healthcare is free.
yeah. That's true. You're that should be a shirt. That'd be a really funny shirt. Americans, we eat like healthcare is free.
Yeah,
That would sell. That would sell.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, man, I just want to kind of dive right in. And
Sure.
I know you've covered it with JT and you've covered it with other people you've talked with, but I want to know, you could summarize it in brief, or you could elongate it and have it be a long answer, your choice. I want to know how this all started with you. What had you want to start chasing and making your music? What inspired you to do it? Whether it was traumas that you went through, in your life, or just the whole being inspired by people that you grew up listening to. Like,
Yeah,
how did you
so
start?
so I've been musical from like a young age. Um, it started like I was in fifth grade, and I actually started playing saxophone. Um, but my dad played guitar, and I always kind of enjoyed listening to him and everything. But it wasn't until high school. And it's actually funny that we're doing this interview now since they just announced a new single. But the first time I was probably like 15, 14 or 15, and it was when Breaking Benjamin's "So Cold" was like new.
Right.
Tells you how old I am. Um,
Well, I'm almost 38, so
okay, well, so
yeah,
you get it, you know.
yeah, I
So,
get it.
but it was really like my first entrance into like post grunge or hard rock. And the first time I had heard it, like I was absolutely captured by the melody and the structure, how the song hit me, and I was like, "That's what I want to do."
Yeah,
And it kind of just started from there. I started playing guitar. I had this cheap Fender Stratocaster knockoff and an awful practice amp from the '80s, and it just kind of went along from there. And I eventually just picked up the ability to write songs. So I don't know. Did we lose you? I think it's just me. Uh oh. Oh, there you are.
yeah. I got no picture though. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I. My kid wants me to get him some Cheerios, and I unplugged the wrong thing to start walking around with my laptop.
Oh,
So just give me 1 second.
no,
I'm
you're fine.
sorry.
It's all right. Did everything I say come through?
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
Here's your Cheerios, buddy. He is a Cheerio obsessed kid, man.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, let's see if I can fix my picture real quick since I decided to be like a cat and just unplug something at random. Oh, it's on the wrong camera right now, I think. Wait, is it? No, it's not. All right, what's this thing's problem here? Gotta love technical issues, especially when you cause them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go.
There we are.
Okay, we're back on track. All right, as you were saying.
So yeah, I picked up songwriting, and it was just a bug that never left me. And like even kind of going into the foray of like learning how to produce and mix and stuff like that, I talked myself out of going to school for years for it, and then finally decided back in 2022 that I was tired of putting it off and, saying, oh, well, it's going to take me this amount of time. And it's like you go those amount of years and you're just like, I could have had this done. And you just talk
Right.
yourself out of stuff constantly. So I decided to stop doing it.
Yeah. I am no stranger to talking myself out of doing things. I wanted to pursue music myself as well, but I've talked myself out of it all my life, thinking that my voice isn't good enough or my writing isn't good enough. I didn't dedicate myself to an instrument besides my voice. So I could relate to that.
Yeah. My voice was a big thing that I had to get over.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was very, very self-conscious. Like if you go into like my list of tracks, my first track, Control, I released that back in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I kind of I released it under a different name, and I just re-released it under As I Speak. But that was like my first dip into doing any kind of solo work whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing that I'm kind of like working with doing right now is I kind of started going into this mode where I was only creating when I was writing for As I Speak. So I kind of have to get myself back into the habit of creating just to create, even if it doesn't see the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, because that way it won't limit you and it won't give you a reason to, I guess, not do something.
well, I mean, it's
Like
beneficial just to sit and create anyways, because it's all a
yeah,
process. You're constantly growing.
yeah,
You know, like you just do like a little bit better each time. And it's so funny because you see all these people on YouTube who will sit and do like live streams as they write a song, and like it'll sound like amazing, and they're just like, it's all right. And you're just like, what do you mean it's all right? Like this is really good. But that's just because they're so practiced at doing it. And it's just kind of like, anyone can do it if you just dedicate yourself to it.
yeah. That's a universal, not opinion, but fact. I hear from a lot of people I talk to on here about when I bring up that I've wanted to do it, and they're like, it's just a matter of doing it or not doing it.
Yeah.
Even if you have to use, those instruments on a program, if you don't play anything, learn that, and you can put your songs together that way. And
Yeah.
a lot of people do it that way. So it's just a matter of doing it and the way of doing it that works for your situation, I guess.
Yeah, that was kind of one thing too. I think that's one thing that's been kind of a hindrance on my creativity. Uh, I've been looking at getting those programs like the Submission Audio, like
Mm-hmm.
Genbase and stuff like that,
Yeah.
so that whenever I'm sitting down and writing, like I'll have bass that I can use. Because it's like, yeah, it's nice if you have like your own dedicated space where you can have like six guitars and you've got the room for it. But like I just don't have that.
Right.
So, and honestly, the bass tones out of it are really, really good. It's like, I think if you kind of doctor them up a little bit, I think to an untrained ear, they won't notice the difference.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. A lot of people miss a lot of things. Like, have you ever heard, and you probably said it yourself, when someone's listening to a song and then they're telling the artist how amazing they think it sounds, and like the artist kind of smirks or laughs and says, "Well, if you listen on this part, you'll hear this little blurb, but to like to your point, the untrained ear won't pick that up."
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, well, I mean, even with like modern drums and stuff, most songs that you listen to are either programmed or samples are used over natural drums.
right.
So like it's just one of those things where it's like we found ways to make things more sonically pleasing when you listen to them, and all that matters is the creativity that goes into it. Like
Mhm.
especially like me, I'm terrible at programming drums. Like it's just something that I have to practice at and do it. I will never probably dedicate myself to learning how to play like an actual kit, but I mean, if I can sit and program my own drums and write my own music that way, do I really need to? I can get a real drummer to do that if I want to do it live.
Yeah, I mean, there's options for people to use and utilize and just take advantage of. There's nothing wrong with any of that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with using the tools available to you.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where you just kind of have to adjust to it. Like, yeah, like it was done one way for a long time, but like, do you have a traded space to record drums? Do you have like 12 microphones? Do you have that
Right.
kind of budget? Or do you just buy, a MIDI controller for $120 and get a sample kit or
Yeah.
a trigger kit from like Steven Slate, and then you've spent a fraction of the cost and you can get whatever drum sounds you want.
Yeah, like it's cost effective in that sense, and honestly, I feel like that's what I would end up doing if I, got serious. So,
Yeah, I mean the people who are like older generations, like in their like 40s and 50s, who've been doing it for decades, if this technology was available to them sooner, they would have used it.
oh yeah,
You
100%.
know?
They would say they wouldn't have, but that they would have.
Yeah. I mean, all the guitar tones that you hear on my music is all neural DSP. I don't use a single real amp for any of my guitar recording.
Well, the tone is awesome.
Yeah.
I love the tone on your songs, man.
Yeah, and I mean
I say,
they're captures of real amps. So like it's not a
yeah,
physical amp that I use, but it's a real amp.
yeah. I think it sounds awesome, man. It works for you, and I'm only one guy, but I say just keep doing it the way you're doing it because I love how it sounds.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I would have to spend thousands of dollars. You get like a neural DSP plugin, you're getting three different amplifier heads, you're getting three different cabinets, you can mix and match. Like I spent
mhm.
$120 and I got $6,000 worth of amps. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why not?
That's a steal.
Yeah, why not?
That's a steal. So I want to go back to the first song from 2017 that you re-released,
Hmm.
and just kind of ask you. I have my own interpretations of your songs, like for what they could be about and everything, but I want to hear for a few of them in the artist's words what they were written about at the time and whether or not these songs that you've put out have different meanings for you today.
Good
Starting with that
question.
first.
That's a good question. I would say that there are a couple of my songs that I kind of feel like I might have had a certain intention at the time, but the lyrics are like non-specific enough that it could evolve with differing situations. Control is kind of like a specific uh,
Mm-hmm.
kind of deal where just kind of being in a relationship that had really gone sour and you kind of
Right,
felt like stuck in the situation. Your
right,
partner was either became emotionally abusive or things just became like really unhealthy.
right,
And it's just kind of, I anything I write, I always try to avoid writing out of anger. I try to take my time
right.
to really reflect on the situation and write from a place of just release and introspection. So that's kind of what that song is about, just detailing like everything that happened and just being able to sit and reflect on it in the aftermath. So that's what that song is about.
Hmm. Kind of a bit of what I was taking away from it myself. Uh, some of my background as far as my mother's side of this, and then my brothers and I, uh, she went through something like that got really bad, And
Hmm.
so that song for me particularly, and I think that was I think that was the first song I checked out from you after your talk with JT. It might have been the first, might have been Men, is one of those two. And
Yeah.
I just remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, this is a song that if little me heard it when that was still going around, probably would have given me a bit more of feeling less like I was the only person in the world in that situation, just from not like the person with the partner that was doing it, but just witnessing it, right? And just
Right.
seeing it
Being
and what it
being
does to you
being a
mentally.
being a
Right.
passenger on the ride.
Basically, yeah. I felt like, like with a lot of Linkin Park songs too, like, you just, they're songs that you hear later in life that you're like, man, this would have been awesome for little me.
Yeah.
So the way you're describing how you approach writing a song, even if the memory from what and is getting you to want to write the song isn't necessarily happy, and it could be angry or whatever. I like the fact that you take the time to kind of think about it, try and understand it better, and then just kind of assess, would this benefit me more and help me more if I wrote this out in a really angry, resentful kind of way? Or would it be better to write it with a clear head and a clear view on it?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. I want to write from a
Yeah,
place like I want to write lyrics that I can stand by. And I think
right.
a lot of times when you respond in anger, more often than not, you kind of wish it's things you never said. And I
That,
think, especially if you're recording
yeah.
music and you're going out there and you're kind of immortalizing it in a way,
Hmm.
you have to kind of stand by, even at the time where you're like, oh, I don't really feel that way anymore.
Right.
But to other people, that's not going to matter. So I mean, at the end of the day, what's most important is what matters to you. And I think, you
Exactly.
know, that's kind of why I take that approach because I want to be able to be able to talk about it in a way where I have some clarity on the
Hmm.
situation instead of flying off the cuff and saying things I might regret later.
Yeah. It's like that hindsight kind of stuff. I've been there a lot of times in my life, and I'm, obviously you have as well, where like something happens and things are said, and then you're like, you're set in the aftermath of it, and you're like, what was the point of any of that?
Yeah.
And who did it benefit in any kind of way, when all it was things that was brought out from anger or jealousy, or things like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's hard to stop yourself in the moment when you're just in that space in your head and you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's hard to stop, but you wish you would have. So
That's
great song, great take on that, great way of approaching it and just processing it for yourself with the experience you had with that song. It's a
thank
great
you. I
song.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
But awesome, awesome song, man. And just you've heard this before. I do love the Breaking Benjamin influence on your music. It's they're a band that are basically gonna be like, your Metallicas of our generation, and your whatever, Molly Cruz, or just they're gonna be those big names when we're
Yeah.
older, much
Yeah.
older, that we hear these younger kids starting bands talk about. It's like, oh man, I'm Breaking Benjamin, Phobia album, or something like that, or uh, Dear Agony, or just any one of those, or Metallica's Black, or Master of Puppets, or Ride the Lightning, or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, the bands that really came up around that time, Stained, Breaking,
Absolutely.
Stained, Breaking Benjamin, Chevelle, 3 Days Grace, all of those guys, like they really caught that wave off of new metal and
Hmm.
kind of evolved things. Like you didn't really hear like a lot of like single note riffs, kind of like what
Hmm.
Breaking Benjamin popularized and
Yeah.
Stained kind of popularized. So yeah, like you definitely hear that, and it's one of those things where like I can't avoid them being an
Yeah.
influence. It's but I've tried to take precautions that I take them as an influence, but not, I'm not trying to rip them off, you know.
Yeah.
But the way that they kind of did like do their songwriting, that's really crept into bands of significant genres and or significant bands in genres. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's prevalent enough now that people can, I think, cut you a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
especially like when I sat and wrote Mend, like that intro riff came really, really quick. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, that's like really breaking that. It's not too much, but it just felt so good when I wrote it. I was like, I gotta.
yeah, I mean, I was gonna bring that riff up and say it's one of my favorite riffs on any of your songs.
Yeah.
Like it's hooky, it's heavy, and it drives the song, you know. And that's the next song that I was actually gonna bring up and just say that I'm probably way off the money with what you're maybe writing about, but I have a grandparent right now who is kind of losing his memory and all that kind of dementia, misremembering things. There's lines in the song that for some reason when I heard them had me thinking you're writing about seeing somebody that you love and care about losing who they are in their mind.
So close. I actually wrote that song. My aunt back in 2016
Mm-hmm.
um, actually ended up passing away from brain cancer.
Okay.
Um, so I it definitely I mean it has some specificity to it, but definitely the overarching theme of that song is about watching a loved one pass away from an illness.
Right.
But yeah, specifically it was just kind of watching her waste away from the cancer, between the treatments, her not having an appetite, um, and just really not being there anymore until they put her on a morphine drip to keep her comfortable until she passed.
Right.
So and that was the first time that I had really experienced watching a loved one pass away from illness. I guess I'd been kind of lucky. I was able to avoid that for a lot of
Right.
my life, but it eventually comes for us all.
It
And
does.
and so that was like my way of processing it. Like, I'm really grateful for what I've been able to do with So Lunar's backing, because, that song might have taken a lot longer to get out. But they've been very supportive. They've been very gracious. So I'm glad that I was able to finally process it in like a very healthy way.
Yeah. Well, now that I know the background of the song and what it's about, a lot of people in the world that have seen loved ones pass from cancer. I've, had my mom's mom passed from cancer herself years and years and years and years ago. So, I mean, that just makes the song even heavier for me and hit harder for me because I've been there, as have a lot of other people. So that's I'm gonna deviate a little bit off subject just to bring up something that, and it I've always had a really hard time with processing death and accepting that it's something that happens, that you age, you get older, you pass on, whether from that or just illnesses. And then I've only ever been able to find closure and just acceptance and understanding about stuff like that through heavy music that I listen to, right?
Sure.
And where I'm going with this is it exists obviously in all kinds of music where writers and people that write for these artists will write about heavy subjects like that. But I can't listen to like pop music a lot of the time and hip hop because it seems like it's a lot of stuff written about a lot of nothing, right? A lot of just materialism and stuff. So I appreciate the people that want to not shy away from stuff like that because they're afraid it won't get radio play. They're afraid that a label won't want to pick them up if they're not writing about what everybody else is. So I appreciate people like you that write about those real life things, even when it's hard to do it and it's hard to open yourself up. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and thank you. It kind of just depends on how it's all delivered. It definitely, I think, would also depend
Mhm.
on the artist. I mean, I covered Halsey for a reason. I think she's an excellent
Yeah,
lyricist. I think she's an excellent artist.
yeah.
And there's a couple songs on her new album coming out where she details the period of sickness that she went through and how close to death that
Hmm.
she got. And like, if you listen to um, one of them is Lucky, and the other one, I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but it's even more of like a vulnerable, subdued song where she
Right.
talks about being sick. So like, I think it really just kind of depends on the artist. Like maybe some artists just don't feel comfortable writing about it. Maybe they can't. It's a number of things. But I also
Yeah,
think radio play for pop music isn't about the sad songs. It's about the ones that people want to
that's
dance to and
true.
want to get stuck in.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of like one of those things where like you have to give the artist a chance. You got to listen a little deeper sometimes. I trust me, not every pop song catches my attention, but like if the catches it enough, I might check out more of their stuff. And I think that's where you'll find the more meaningful songs.
Yeah, no, you make a great point with that. I guess you could say it as sits that I could be pretty close minded about pop music or just popular culture music, just because of that what I just detailed beforehand. And as I get older, I've been trying so hard to not be that way. Like I even went and listened to that new Taylor Swift album, not the folklore one, but the one that she put out before that has like what 30 some songs on it.
Yeah.
And there's some songs on that and lyrics that I'm like, that's pretty deep stuff.
Hmm.
I don't have the greatest opinion of her, not because she isn't talented, not because she isn't a good songwriter. I just think her celebrity serves her more credit than she's due. It's just the simple thing of my beef with her, and that's it. But I've come around to people like Justin Bieber. There's songs that he's written recently that I've listened to. I'm like, wow, he went through a lot of hard stuff, and
Yeah.
he's just now starting to talk about it. So you make a great point. It's looking past like the other stuff, like the materialism, those poppy songs that they're just meant to be danced to, or you just got to find and just set that stuff aside and you'll discover that there's more to it. So I
Well,
try to do that.
I think also with rock and metal, because it tends to be a more aggressive style of music that it's
Uh-huh.
expected and anticipated for the lyrical content to cover the not so
Oh yeah.
fun pretty side of life. So it's completely fair to like be drawn to that inherently and then kind of
Mhm.
look at other genres that don't really cater in that current direction, at least not on the surface typically. um,
Right.
so I wouldn't say it's necessarily closed minded. I think it's just you have to reframe your perspective in a way where you're like, the expectation that I'm holding, I am not going to find on the radio, but you'll find it elsewhere. You will.
Right. Right. That's a great point too, man. And that's what I like talking with artists on here is it could kind of in a sense reframe my own takes on things and get me looking at things in a different way that I wouldn't
Mhm.
have beforehand. So yeah, man, like you just keep like having things click in my brain, like, oh yeah, that's a great point. He has a great way of looking at that.
Well, I
So
do.
I
I mean,
appreciate that. You're
I do a lot of active listening, and it's something
yeah.
that you kind of have to train yourself to do, especially because I do. I mean, I'm always going to continue as I speak in some capacity, but I do really want to focus on the production side of things and work with other artists producing them
Mhm.
and all that because I always feel my most creative when I'm in the studio. And of course, working with other people, it's always so nice because no two people are alike, so you can come up with some really cool
Mhm.
ideas. But I do a lot of active listening. So like I will listen in a song, like I'll try to pick out layers and I'll find the behind the scenes more technical stuff when I listen, and of course that also details into listening further past than like what we talked about being on the radio. I think there's just so much to glean. So I definitely, if you don't already, maybe just like practice active listening. I think you'll gain a whole new appreciation for a lot of music.
I probably active listen more with the stuff that I like than I do stuff that I'm not typically known to listen to. So yeah, I think I'll try that with things that I wouldn't gravitate to, you know, otherwise.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
Patrick,
Oh, what's up, Pat?
uh, yeah, Steve Man himself coming in here to say hey. It's funny. I was just about to message him during the week and say, dude, let's just have you come on spontaneously and just chat, but I think he's busy.
Oh yeah. Well, that man
Yeah.
releases like
Yeah.
3 songs a month. He is busy.
I know he just released, and then he has another one coming out. I'm just like, good lord, man, where does it? I don't want it to end, but it's like you'd think there'd be bigger breaks.
No, but that's great though. Like,
Man,
man, he's in a flow. He's in a
yeah,
flow state, man. He just constantly
yeah,
creates. That's great.
yeah. They're gonna be doing a thing with Edema here pretty soon, I think, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
So
I hadn't heard about that.
yeah, yeah. He's been posting about it, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I've been seeing it. And gonna segue in with that. Let's talk about that Halsey cover for colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get the background of what
Whatever you
had to
want to
get
know,
you
man.
to do it. Yeah, just
What
what made you want to do it? I think you touched on it beforehand, but just go a little deeper with it.
uh I really loved the simplicity of the song. I
Mhm.
it's nice when you find a song like that because I mean the arrangement itself was was not a huge big production, and because of that it gives you a lot of room to expand on the song. And of course I just like the song in general. I love the melody of it. I love the energy of it. And
Mhm.
Halsey never misses with her delivery. So I was just when I first listened to that song I was like, I kind of want to do something with that. And of course, like, I'm not a pop artist, so that's not the direction I wanted to go. But when I was listening to it I was like, how much of this can I experiment and expand on without losing the plot? And
Right.
so that was kind of like my big thing, in the very beginning of the song. That tremolo guitar part that you hear. I just was kind of sitting around. I picked like a random effect when I was sitting and working on it in Logic, because what I did is
Mhm.
I took the MP3 of the song and I just started writing guitar parts underneath of it, and then it was just kind of easier to go from there. And I picked some random effect, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, and just we ended up keeping that. And my producer Ben, he was like, "What did you do there?" And I said, "I have no idea." So, but just in places where you can have the room to expand on the energy, just like the palm mutes and the pre-chorus and stuff. And I didn't want to go too hard until like the last chorus, just to like bring the song home, kind of, because it was very similar in energy to
Mhm.
the original chorus. And so like the last one I was like, we got to go ham on this one, like let's slam this one. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So that's what ended up happening with it. So
Do you know if she's heard your cover?
oh, I'm sure she has not. I've been trying to push for it though. I've just been posting it like every day. I just feel like I'm trying to get her to hear it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure nothing would come from it, but
Yeah.
it's just just to have her listen to it and for her to be like, this is dope, like that would be enough for me. So,
I
and
mean,
Pat's
I
right.
agree, man.
I
Maybe
do
it'll
write
happen. You
music.
never know.
Pat says I write music for dads in souped up minivans. You know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. You know what? Those dads in souped up minivans buy concert tickets. I'll live. I'll live with
Yeah,
that.
that would be a good bumper sticker for a minivan. Just what he said right there.
Yeah, that's actually a
Merch
great idea.
idea.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea. They'll be like, "Who's as I speak?"
maybe
Perfect.
yeah. That leave it to Patrick to come with brilliant merch ideas.
I know, right?
Oh, geez.
He never stops. He never
Oh,
stops.
yeah, I did. And then he says, "Those dads in them vans probably made better life choices than us."
I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. They're in vans.
Hey, yeah. Well, you know the thing, those vans, you can kind of understand why eventually, even when you're on the fence or completely against the minivan, you get in there and you see all the things they got. You're like, oh man, this is roomy. Oh, this is comfortable. Look at all these compartments. 12 cup holders. What?
Yeah, it's all fun and games, and they'll be like,
So,
"Oh,
I
with every Dodge Caravan you buy, there's a free New Balance pair of shoes." They'd be like, "Oh no, I can't do that."
yeah, yeah. And not the black pair either, the white pair with the blue, like New Balance logo and the
Yep,
blue trim.
yep, those are the ones.
Yeah, my wife calls my gray and white Adidas my dad's shoes. And then I have my skater Vans shoes as well. Patrick has a question for you. He says, "So, what do you enjoy more, writing the riffs or the vocal melodies?"
Um, I don't know. I kind of flip flop between because sometimes a vocal idea will come to me first, and then I will
Uh
kind
huh.
of expand on it. Typically, what ends up happening with my writing process is I will always start with the hook first. So really,
Uh huh.
the start of it, I don't even start with riffs. Like this new track I'm working on, I need to write a riff for the beginning of the song because it's got like a really cool hook, but it's far from complete. The vocal melodies are fun. I think I would probably gravitate towards that, despite like my trade being a guitarist. I think I've started to really gravitate more towards the writing process for vocals, coming up with the
Uh
melodies,
huh.
and everything because it could like the music is half the equation, the vocal melody and the lyrics, that's like where the full expression comes out. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of why I've started gravitating towards it. So
Great answer to a great question.
it was a very
That
long-winded answer.
segues me. Hey man, long-winded is good. I like the long-winded answers on here. They're great for content.
That's what I keep
Um,
hearing. I'm glad I'm
that
good for
brings
something.
yeah, yeah. No, my first guest I had on here who it's crazy I could call him a friend, but you recall a band from the real early 2000s, late 1990s called Simon Says? They
Yes.
were on Hollywood Records. Yeah. Well, I reached out to their singer Matt when I found out that they had reformed a couple of years back, and he kept apologizing to me too because he would have these like really long answers to the questions I was asking him, and he kept apologizing like, "Dude, no, that's what I want. I love actually hearing like a deep dive into the question and just getting like a breakdown and stuff." So man, just you could speak for 10, 20 minutes about one question I ask and I'd be totally for it. So
Well,
all good.
yeah, I'll definitely give you all the details.
Please do. I mean, for anything.
Yep.
Um, let's back up a little bit. I skipped over it because I was so invested in what you're talking about beforehand, but let's talk about how Solinar Records happened with you. That was back in 2022, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, truth be told, right now I don't remember how I came across them. Be completely
Mm-hmm.
honest, but I remember I was
That's
like, you
all
know
good.
what, like I was like, I'm just gonna reach out. I had just released Colors. I had Control. I'd released Still Breathing, and I was like, you know what, I kind of just want to see what someone will say if they hear my music, like a label. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of expectations. And Caleb reached out to me and he was like, let's get on a call. And I was like, oh, all right. And of course, like being in that, like it's hard for artists now to find labels that will financially back them with the things that they do.
Uh-huh.
So like I had no like real expectations of it. I was just like, I'll hear what they have to say. I mean, if it's going to be one of those deals where like, I'm going to be fronting everything financially, like there's just no point. And but they did. They liked my stuff. They really liked Control, and
Mm-hmm.
we had talked about it. And at the time, and I'm looking to change that next year. But at the time, I was just like, I don't plan on doing shows anytime soon. I don't have the schedule for it, and frankly, I don't have the talent pool for it. And
Mm-hmm.
but they were completely understanding about it. They did not like pressure me about it. They didn't, give me like any kind of timeline. They were like, "We really like your stuff. We want to hear more
Right.
of your stuff."
Yeah.
So I got very fortunate with them doing that, and they've been very patient in the process of me getting things. And like that really is the hardest part. Like I'm at the point now where I can make a schedule for myself where I can make myself available for practices and shows and everything. But now it's finding the right people for it, and unfortunately most of the really good ones are taken, so it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, that's the reality of it, man. It's hard to find people with the time for it and just the qualities and the personalities that you're wanting,
Yeah,
And I don't know about you, but if I ever did that, I would want to find people that obviously are like minded to what my goal is with music, but also people that would be comfortable enough to also challenge me, instead of
yeah.
just falling in line and just going with whatever you're saying, right? Because I'm of the mind that a band is works best when all parties are equally um, creative and with equal input, if you know what I mean.
To an extent, I agree with that. I mean, for the most part, I would say like 80% of that is a yes for me. I do think
Yeah,
anytime that you are in a group, someone has to make the final call, because
that's true.
not everyone's ideas are going to be, like, for lack of a better term, they're not all equally good. Like some of them are just like, we'll explore it, but I don't feel confident about this one. But as long as you
Mm-hmm.
explore it, I think that matters, because even if the idea itself, it might lead to another idea. So like,
Mm-hmm.
but I think at the end of the day, like if you're in a band, like you don't necessarily need someone who runs it like a dictatorship, but you definitely need someone who is trusted to make the final call, someone who can handle like the business, because you don't want three different people doing all the same tasks, causing a bunch of confusion. So like I would say
Right.
for the most part, a lot of people, everyone in the band is equal, but it's kind of like that quote from Animal Farm where it's like all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. It's someone's got to be there to make the final decision on things. So,
Yeah,
but
that's
but
a common
that's
answer with it. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I think that's what I want, though. I would want someone to challenge me. I mean, I like doing as I speak and writing for myself, and you know kind of being allowed to have free reign, but at the same time, like, it is hard,
Mm-hmm.
writing everything, like the all the guitar parts, the vocal melodies, the lyrics. It's one of those things. It's a creative muscle that I have to flex more, and it'll get easier over time. But I definitely prefer working with other people, because it kind of takes like a little bit of the load off. And so, like, I definitely would have no issues with someone challenging me on something. Like I said, every idea is worth trying. And if someone's got a better idea than me,
Yeah,
then we'll absolutely go with it. Like, please, you know.
yeah. I mean,
So
that's that. I actually hear that's kind of the calming universal answer to that question. I hear from a lot of people I've asked after I say my own side of it. Well, I want equal creative input and involvement, but I did mention that yeah, I want challenged as well, because if there's nobody challenging, it's kind of like something could get out that maybe shouldn't have been put out. That maybe wasn't good enough, or maybe should have been fleshed out more.
yeah,
And I remember who it was and what band it was. It's probably too long ago for me to remember, but I think they put it like, if there was nobody to stand up, whether it's music or like a movie or like a book or anything like that, or just like an idea at your job, there's that potential for something to just spiral out and be a disaster. You know,
Yeah, it's kind
it
of
could
it.
like derail.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
But
like even if you break it down to like mixing, like if you're mixing a song, if everything is loud, then nothing is loud. So like,
mhm.
when you're working with writing with other people, it's like if everybody is equal, then no one is equal. Which is kind of like a weird way to put it. Like I know that's weird, but it's like, or rather, I guess it should say if everyone's equal, then there's no one to really make the decision. I guess is more like a better way to put it because everyone's gonna want to be the one. So like it's just too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of like running things.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Um, the next another song I wanted to bring up. It's your most recent one, as far as I know. Let's take a bit of a deep dive with Surrender.
yeah,
It's probably my second favorite track from you, I think, next to Mend.
yeah. There was something about Men where I kind of caught lightning in a bottle with that, and
Yeah.
it's something that I haven't quite cracked since. Um, but no, Surrender actually it took a while to get Surrender put together. I was stuck on it for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for the longest time. So like it actually did not start initially with like the hook in the beginning. It started out with just the verse and like that really subdued guitar and everything like that. I actually
Right.
had I started writing the song where I had like vocals coming into that and then um the end of like that little block actually because it was all like guitar and like underlying synths with vocals, and then it kind of broke into the verse that you hear now, where it's all bass and drums and stuff. Um, but I kind of decided during the writing process that I didn't like how long it kept it low energy. It felt like there wasn't enough to it to make it to like keep it interesting. So we started it out differently with the hook and then leading into like the more chill verse.
Right. And then, as far as subject matter for you, where did the song come from? As far as like a feeling or an experience you had?
It was really about like kind of detailing the feeling of just being crushed by the mounting responsibilities, stresses in life, and just really, just
Mm-hmm.
like really feeling that way. Because a lot of times, we fight against things until we can't fight anymore, and then at that point, we're just kind of forced to feel the thing that we've been struggling against. And so that's what
Right.
surrender was about. It was just about finally giving in to all the things that I had been fighting to keep myself from feeling from breaking down from and just finally allowing myself to have that because at the end of the day that's really what has to happen. We're just not ready to grieve the process. So
Wow. I mean, I kind of got that sense when I listened to it, and I am a big offender as far as not wanting to face something that I know I need to,
mhm,
and thinking, oh, I could just keep putting that off and act like it's not there and it won't affect anything. But
yeah,
downstream, it's going to, and it's in
mhm,
that you can never say when it will, but it's going to.
yeah,
So something I've been trying to practice in my life more is just even if I don't like it, I don't want to do it. It's better to just do it and sort it out and figure out what's going to either fix it or just make something easier. It's better to just do that than to just let it fester inside and become worse. So,
yeah,
um, very relatable song in that sense.
yeah. It like I said, I was stuck on it musically for the longest time and just getting the lyrics right for it, and then I kind of one day just decided to kind of like use my keyboard because like my shortcoming as a producer and a writer is like I need to familiarize myself more with like the keys in music, like song
Right,
keys. So
right.
but like one day like I just kind of sat down and I grabbed my piano, my MIDI piano, and I just started working out a vocal melody and a vocal cadence with the piano, and once I had that, writing the lyrics came very quickly because like the biggest half of that battle is finding the melody itself. The lyrics are kind of like once you start kind of humming it along, lyrics will just start to form in your head, and it's kind of easy from there, at
Mm-hmm.
least for me.
Um, do as far as lyrics and stuff is, if you touch on this, I apologize, but lyrics, and I'm linking this to like writer's block and stuff, and like how you can overcome it, and like humming a melody. Is that something that could kind of get you over like a writer's block hump, or do you have to take time away from writing to maybe sort that out and then revisit an idea? Because something you're probably familiar with is when you force something to happen,
Yeah.
it could often to the listener, either musically or lyrically, they could pick up on that it was forced to happen so you could be done with it. So, like writer's block, how do you
Yeah.
tackle that?
So the best way that I've known to kind of get past it is to give time for the idea to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the newest track, I was on like a kick with writing the lyrics, and I had like, a really solid idea of where like the direction was, but like the more
Right,
that I examined it, the more I'm like, I want to change my lyrics now. And I know that there's half of them that I'm not happy with, but I'm not sure what I'm writing yet. So instead of
right.
sitting there and just trying to force things to fit that don't feel right, I have just kind of stepped away from writing that song. And I think I've got another song that actually we've got the skeleton for that is a bit of a different vibe from
Mm-hmm.
what I've normally released. Um, that I may kind of start dedicating a little bit of time to, just to kind of give myself a break from the previous track.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I've always just found it best to just step away. Uh, I think another way to handle it that I've not really attempted yet is to just work on creating something else. Just work on creating in general. Like we talked about earlier, creating just to create. I think that's a great way probably to get past writer's block. I don't know how many songwriters talk about it, so it must be something that works.
Yeah,
So,
it must be.
so
um, Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but for me, it's just at this point in time, it's just been stepping away from the idea until it comes back to me in a natural way.
Okay. As I write lyrics too, and I kind of do the same thing. If something's not coming to me, I'm just gonna stop trying and just let it happen on its own. Like
Yeah,
I have in my phone, because as you upgrade to phone, you get your stuff transferred to the new phone. I have things that go back to as far as like 2012, 2010 that still isn't finished.
yeah,
That I still haven't finished, and it's kind of one of those things like, could I finish it now? Because I'm a much different person than like even something I started 2 years ago or a year ago, you know.
sure.
Um, what's the oldest song that you've revisited recently enough, anyway, where you're like, oh, this is going to have rejuvenated life because I'm kind of like a different person today than when I started on this idea. Do you have anything like that right now?
Uh, well, actually, if it were up to me, I would redo my vocals for "Still Breathing." That was
Mm-hmm.
when I first popped back into being a solo songwriter, and I was not super confident in my singing abilities and my writing abilities and writing melodies. I was still just so new coming back into it that that song has potential for so much more. I still like the chorus of it, but the verses I would love to change and re-record. Um, there's not really been like in terms of anything that I haven't recorded recently. There's nothing I've really revisited as much. I'm trying to kind of switch my mindset to also sometimes like writing lyrics just to write them down. Like maybe I'll take some of that stuff and add them to another song. Where you're like, well, I don't want to finish this entire thing as a song, but I really like these two lines,
Right.
so I'll snag those. So I think it's nice to have those unfinished ideas because you can maybe Frankenstein something together down the road instead of
Okay.
necessarily just finishing a song to finish a song.
Yeah. No, no, I get that. It's nice to have things stockpiled, so you have it there ready for when it's time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of artists do that. I think a lot of
Yeah.
artists kind of be like, well, I got a couple old ideas that I kind of like it now and I want to do more with it.
Yeah.
So,
So getting to the end of this, I have a few things I'm going to bring up. Some on topic, some not.
okay.
Um, so you've already been touching on throughout this stream what's in the works for as I speak. Um, is there an idea or the workings of trying to do either sticking with the singles kind of thing that you do, or maybe doing like a 3 or 4 track EP?
Well, what I can say is um, I for sure have two more songs coming. And I think the plan is going to be the plan that we've talked about is like releasing them closer together, not having as much time
Okay.
between singles. But I think that's kind of open to negotiating still. Part of me kind of wants to just get the two songs recorded and then release them along with like Mend and Surrender and like a couple of the others and release it as an EP and just leave those two songs unreleased until that EP drops. Um,
Okay.
but of course, like I definitely want to get more music recorded. Um, I guess I'm not completely like alone in this. There's another guitarist slash producer that I've been talking to and about working with. It's just we haven't got the schedules to line up yet, and I wanted to finish working with my current producer with this contract before I started to expand and work with someone else. And I know that I'll come back to working with Ben again because I love working with Ben. Um, but it'll be cool to kind of work with someone else and to see like how that writing process will go. So
Okay.
uh, if I do go that route, then we'll probably be looking at doing EP releases versus a bunch of singles.
Well, man, I'm excited for new music because obviously I'm a newer fan of yours, as recent as this year. So I immediately heard a lot of talent as far as songwriting and your ability with the guitar, just how you approach what you do. So I just want to say, from my own personal take of what you do, is that even if you don't feel like it, you've captured lightning in a bottle multiple times, and that's in the sense of just, again, how I feel like you approach your music. And that makes me excited for what's coming out eventually, and down the line, whether or not you're able to do shows. I couldn't be more excited for your future because I think you have everything one would need to get more traction and get more eyes and ears paying attention. And I agree with you. Solinar Records. I talk with Caleb here and there, and a few of the other people on that label, and seems like a very, as far as the artists and who runs it, kind of like focused like a family. So I think you got great backing behind you with them, and I'm thrilled for the future.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, I'm excited too. I mean, like I said, it's aside from just kind of working for myself, wanting to work with other artists.
Mhm.
I do have another artist that I will be collaborating with in the near future. We got to talk more about it. Um, but they're also from the Pittsburgh area, and they asked me like,
Right.
"Do you want to be like? Would you want to be on this track?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." But
Oh,
they've got their own releases coming out soon that they need to get out first before we can start working on our collaboration. So I'm hoping in the spring of next year I'll be able to have that song out with these guys. And of course, I don't want to release too many details yet before we have
right.
anything super finalized. But they're good friends, and I'm really excited to work
Yeah.
with them.
Well, I'm very eager to find out who that is. That's going to be a very, very nice treat.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a banger. I've already heard like the instrumental of what they're wanting
Yeah.
to use, and I think we'll be able to do something really cool with it.
All right. I can't wait. And then as we wrap this up, I want to do like kind of like rapid fire, kind of off topic questions for you, just kind of uh, frame other interests, I guess you could say.
Sure.
Off the top of your head, what if you're into stuff like horror or thriller movies, suspense movies? What is your favorite for horror and scary
Um,
stuff?
so I've actually not watched a ton of horror movies, but there was one that I did watch several years ago now that I actually did really like. I liked Hereditary.
Yeah, that
Hereditary
was not bad at all.
Hereditary was a dope movie. Definitely had like a really cool creep factor, but it was good. The Nun was really good when I watched it, and I did see their re-release of It that has Bill Skarsgård in it, and that was really good too. But typically, I don't really go for them. They're just not my thing. It's not like like they're too scary or anything. I don't really enjoy watching them
Yeah.
typically. Um,
Go ahead.
I typically watch more like if I do sit down and watch a movie, I'm really big into like DC.
Mm.
So I watch like a lot of DC movies, Marvel movies. I
What's your
typically watch
favorite?
more like TV shows and documentaries. Honestly, I'm kind of an old man. So,
You mentioned DC and Marvel and stuff like that. What's been your favorite movie that's come out for either Marvel or DC?
well, I would say as of recently with Marvel, it would definitely be Deadpool
Mm-hmm.
and Wolverine. Like
Yeah.
that was that was really really good. Just like they did really great fan service and the comedy hit really well. Hugh Jackman, of course, kills it as he always
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
But like the cameos that they had, finally seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm excited to see if he actually gets his movie now because I want to talk about Channing Tatum a little bit. Okay, so me and my wife are on the same kind of like thinking with him. So he's great at certain things, right? As far as
mhm.
his acting goes. But I feel like he's one of those actors where he kind of gets limited in the roles that he takes.
Yeah,
And when I heard that he was going to do the Gambit movie and then they shelved it or whatever, I actually thought to myself, you know what? Actually, I think he would be a really great fit for the character. And so finally seeing him in like the kind of the accent that he used,
yeah,
and I watched a little thing about why he went with that. It just works. Like I think that movie, if it comes out, is going to be one that's going to be really big and people are going to be really happy with, and kind of like show a little more of like another side of like what he could do as an actor. So
yeah. I think for him to have his own standalone movie, I think if he like thins out the Cajun a little bit, I think it'll be
a
perfect.
little,
I mean, obviously, I love the comedic effect that they used for it in the movie, but
yeah,
what for me, like seeing how much he threw himself into becoming that character, for me, that is always the biggest selling point. Like, you
mm-hmm.
want to see someone who has really put the work in to embody this character because they're going to do the best job. And
Right, yeah,
like to see like how much he put into it and just engrossing himself into becoming Gambit, I think really showed in the movie. He had, I mean, aside from like doing the Cajun accent, he had the energy, he had the personality, the heart when he was doing it. It's kind of like watching with like Hayden Christensen being Anakin, like in
yeah,
the newer Star Wars shows, and just
mm-hmm.
really seeing him have his full potential as Anakin, where he wasn't so limited by working like within what he was given for like the prequels. Like seeing him in Ahsoka and Kenobi, amazing.
I
So
agree
he's
with you,
he's
man.
really he's really getting his due now
Yeah.
later in the years.
Yeah, he deserves that too, man. Like that guy got so much unfair criticism and just, back when he was doing those Star Wars movies way earlier on, that I love seeing so many of those people that were just hating and stuff praising now. seeing like and him as Anakin now, and him as and all that. It's great to see. And you mentioning actors being invested in their roles, I couldn't agree more. Like you always, it's with music too.
Yeah.
Um, you could visibly see and hear when someone's just doing a role to do it and further their career along and
Hmm.
not be completely invested into it. Like Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool, that he loves that character. He loves doing those movies. You see it. Hugh Jackman and Wolverine, you see it. And then, like you
Yeah.
said, Channing Tatum and Gambit, you see how much he cares about that role and wants to do it.
Well, and
So,
that's like that was kind of the stuff that you saw as well, like, um, like seeing Robert Pattinson playing
uh-huh.
Batman. Like he, of course, got like raked over the coals
Yep,
for years because
yep,
of being in Twilight and everything, and then finding out that he did really great like independent roles, and then getting this major role as a major character again, and just seeing like how he really put himself into like this weird social recluse as Bruce Wayne, and like just seeing somebody finally wearing the damage and the trauma that Bruce Wayne typically carries on the inside, and he looks disheveled, he looks troubled, and
yeah.
so but like you even see his growth throughout the movie, like even
Hmm.
towards the end, like he realizes he has to be something different for
Yeah,
Gotham, and I think that's going to be reflected in the next movie. I think he's going to be reflected as more put together and less of like a mess. And you know, when Ben Affleck was Batman, he looked like Bruce Wayne pulled off the pages. He behaved like Bruce Wayne pulled off
yeah.
the pages. So it's like people who invest themselves into these characters that they play.
Who
I think that's the biggest way that they can sell these movies.
who's been your favorite Batman actor?
I would say Ben Affleck so far.
Yeah.
I really like Robert Pattinson. I really admire his take on it, and I would say he's definitely my second favorite. But Ben was just like physically, he was accurate to Batman. He was tall, monstrous in size. Like watching
Hmm.
Batman versus Superman, that warehouse fight scene, and just seeing him put people's heads through the floor. I'm like, how does Gotham have a crime problem? I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like it would be just one time that I see like my dude across the room get his head put through the floor from a punch to the back of the head, where I'm like, I think I'm done. Like I
Yeah.
think I'm good.
What's funny is like I remember when that movie was coming out, people were like, "How in the world would Batman ever stand a chance against Superman?" It's like I could name several. Batman is freaking smart. He's
Hmm.
prepared, and that's like half, almost. I don't know if half of the battle or most of the battle with Superman is being prepared, knowing who you're going up against, like how he did. That's
Yeah,
how he was able to win.
yeah. He is frequently, he's either outsmarted Superman or he's found a way
Yeah,
to even the odds and overpower him.
yeah,
You know, like in the comic line for Hush, where Superman's under Poison Ivy's controls, chasing after them, and like Batman looks at Catwoman and he says, "Deep down, Clark's a good person, and deep down, I'm not." And he just like cracks
yeah,
him with like these kryptonite brass knuckles, and I'm just like, that's like this is what I'm talking about. Like he's
yeah.
just so it's like, yeah, he's done it several times. Like, yeah, if like we were going to the situation where, yes, Batman has a little bit of plot armor because like you see how fast Superman moves. He'd be able to turn him into paper in
Mm-hmm,
a second if he wanted to.
mm-hmm.
But that's where it's kind of like deep down Clark's a good person and deep down I'm not. That's just not who he is. So it's, definitely one of those things.
Yeah, I agree, man. And then before I move on to the next question, who's been your least favorite Superman? I'll tell you mine, Val Kilmer.
Well, Val Kilmer was Batman, not Superman.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. I meant Batman. Yeah,
Actually, my least favorite was I would say was I can't even really say it's his acting that was bad because it was just the movie that they were given. I actually really liked Val Kilmer as Batman.
yeah,
Apparently, like the original cut that they did of that movie, he is given a lot more seriousness. There's a lot more depth to the original cut of the movie, but Warner Brothers wanted to sell a bunch of toys. So when
okay.
Schumacher did those movies, they geared it towards like selling toys to kids and
So
shit
he
like
was
that.
done a disservice, basically.
Yeah, him. I mean, honestly, him and George Clooney both. I mean, George Clooney, though, I think he was picked more because at the time he was just a rising star. Uh, he was a terrible Batman. Great Bruce Wayne,
Yeah.
terrible Batman. Um, and then like I used to really love the Christopher Nolan movies, but I kind of feel like as the years have gone on and I've rewatched them, I feel like I'm watching a movie with Batman in it and not Batman movies.
Yeah, the funny thing you say that is like I've recently rewatched those movies too. And when they first came out, I'm like, man, this is like such a heavy and just dark and just gritty take on Batman. And now when I watch them, like you said, I'm like, okay, they could have done things better as far as like with Ben Affleck's Batman, just making you really see the character Batman and Bruce Wayne,
Mhm.
both, and not just one or the other, or in whatever way.
Well, you could the biggest thing with Ben Affleck's portrayal is you kind of could see him using being Bruce Wayne as the mask.
Right,
Because he could switch. Like Batman is who he truly is. Bruce Wayne is the mask. So like being able to see him in a setting where he can be Bruce Wayne and then immediately drop the facade and you know who you're
right,
dealing with. Like Bale was a really good Bruce Wayne, but I don't think Nolan really knew how to write those movies or whoever he had on it with writing them because the biggest thing like there was only really a couple storylines where Bruce wanted to give up being Batman and have like a normal life and every time it did not
right,
work out because he's just not built for it. But
right,
in the movies it's just like he kept trying to steer Bale's Batman like from not being Batman anymore. And I was just like, and especially like, he was ready to quit the life and be with Rachel, and then she was killed by the Joker or whatever.
hmm
And it's kind of like none of this makes sense. And then Dark Knight Rises, where he has his falling out with Alfred. I was like, are you serious? Like, why are you taking this direction? Like, this is not how this goes at all.
right,
And he made Bale's Batman too human. Like, yeah, we know that over the course of years, like your body's gonna deteriorate, but that's why Batman's a superhero because his body doesn't break down like other humans. He is trained to
right,
peak physical fitness, and it's just I think after Heath Ledger died, I don't think Nolan really knew where he was going to take that last movie because he
hmm
always planned for it to be a trilogy.
yep,
But I think after Ledger died, I think that really threw things into a tailspin, and they had to figure out how to wrap up the trilogy because I think Heath Ledger's Joker still had a place in the last movie.
yeah,
So
yeah. I agree with you. I loved Heath Ledger's Joker. By the way, I think he was just great in that role. He was real
yeah,
great.
he was, and I feel bad because Jared Leto really got shit on. Um, but if you haven't watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, you really should. The epilogue scene at the end where he has Jared's Joker as like the nightmare like storyline or whatever, he's a lot better portrayed because he had more freedom to really be the
Right.
Joker. He was intimidating in the way that he acted. Like you could see the crazy in his eyes, like when he talked. And so it was, he didn't do a bad job. I'm really looking forward to Barry Keoghan's Joker that you got to see in a deleted scene from the Batman. I think he physically
Mhm.
looks really great. I think he seems like he's calculating, uh, and I'm really excited to see where they go from there.
Same. I hope it turns out great with him because I agree with you. I'm excited to see his take. And then to kind of wrap this up, I think JT asked you the same thing, but I'm going to ask you it too. I love asking my guests if they could describe their music as a food, what would they pick? And it could be a drink
Ooh.
or like a food, that you eat. What
Hmm,
would it be for you?
that's a good question. Um, oh man. I don't want to say anything that like I guess like if I were to describe my music, it would be since you're kind of looking, it kind of comes as like a release, and you're looking to feel something and to feel like almost like a comfort afterwards. So I guess it would be kind of like a comfort food almost in ways.
Macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, can't get any whiter than that.
That's great.
Baked macaroni and cheese. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, man. So real great time with you on here, talk about your music and interests and things like that, and the future of As I Speak. I'm thrilled for what's coming. Really excited to hear who you're going to do a song with. That's really got me wondering if I already know, but don't know that I know. So um, when you're gearing up to actually release a new song, I'll reach out to you and see if you want to come on and talk about it. And I'll help promote it and get the word out about it, along with, your own promotion that you're going to do with it. And yeah, man, I just been real fun talking with you. I'm glad it worked out this time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, love your music, as you know. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm going to get this downloaded onto my computer, then upload it onto my YouTube. It's going to be on Facebook pretty much as soon as I hit end stream on the Lyris Pacifist page. So you're more than welcome to chop this up if you want to. I'm going to be putting up clips. You can do it in any way you want yourself. Yeah, should be up within the next hour or so on YouTube as well. And yeah, loved having you on, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a great time.
Yeah. You enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to get some more coffee and get something else to eat. And yeah.
All right,
Take
man.
care.
I'll talk to you soon.
Later.
Later.
Oh, come on. For some reason, this doesn't want to end the stream. Nothing like technical difficulties. Oh, there.